Dr. Ella Phoenix, in her early 30s, held the position of Assistant Professor of Cryptography and Computer Science at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, in Boston. While she was deeply rooted in the high-tech world of New England, her life was perpetually shadowed by the long, looming history of an old, nearly ruined gentry family from Virginia, the Phoenixes. Once affluent during the American Civil War, the family had been plagued by generations of mysterious failures and losses. Ella often rationalized it as mere bad luck, but her family firmly believed it was a curse.
Ella was currently grappling with a significant personal challenge. Her late grandmother, Elizabeth Phoenix, the most stern and secretive woman in the family, had recently passed away. Elizabeth always maintained, the Phoenixes can never lead normal lives until Artemas is quiet. Artemas was Ella's great-great-grandfather, a scientist who was ultimately hanged as a traitor for his alleged work with the Confederates during the Civil War. According to Elizabeth's will, Ella was the sole heir entrusted with all her personal effects and possessions. In truth, Elizabeth knew Ella was the only one with the unique expertise to solve the elaborate puzzle she had left behind. In Elizabeth's dusty Victorian apartment in Boston, Ella discovered a secret drawer. Inside was a small, extraordinarily heavy leather trunk, oddly insulated with layers of salt crystals and dried juniper leaves, an old preservation technique.
The trunk contained 3 items: a worn diary, handwritten by Artemas Phoenix, covering the period between 1861 and 1863. Most of the diary was filled with mathematical symbols, astronomical charts, and obscure letters. A yellowed letter, dated May 1863. This was Artemas's final letter to Elizabeth's grandmother. It bore a striking watermark, secured by MC. A key, with a strange geometric design, unlike any lock Ella recognized. Elizabeth's warning and cryptanalysis. Elizabeth's last letter was incredibly brief. Ella, leveraging her cryptography expertise, quickly deduced that the numbers were an advanced form of the modern Vigenère cipher. However, it required the correct key. Ella returned to Artemas's diary. She noticed that the margin of several pages was marked with the name of a season: spring, summer, etc. Ella made a sudden intuitive leap. She used the name of the first month of spring, March, as the key.
Immediately, the code of the letter was deciphered. My dearest Elizabeth, the device is with the Masons. You know its power is terrible. I have hidden it. My time is done. You must promise me to find it and silence it forever. Remember, the Phoenixes see the shadow where the sun's light never touches the day. Go to Sandridge Manor. The device will not seek you. You must seek the device. A.F. Ella's hands trembled. Could MC truly stand for the Mason Codex? And Artemas had sworn her to destroy it. Historical context. Information. In the history of American espionage, the Mason Codex was legendary. It was an early electromechanical encryption device, a rudimentary cipher machine built by a Confederate engineer named John Mason. The codes that produced were so complex that they were considered perpetually unbroken after the Civil War. The threat of the silent ring. The following morning, as Ella was preparing for her journey to Sandridge Manor in Virginia, there was a knock on her MIT office door. A tall, physically imposing man named Hayden Cross introduced himself as a historical researcher. His eyes held a suppressed arrogance, and his demeanor was overtly military. Dr. Phoenix, Hayden began, his voice trained and resonant. I've been researching the work of Artemas Phoenix. I hear you've inherited some of his personal belongings. Ella instantly grew cautious. "I am merely handling family estate matters. I am not involved in any historical research." Hayden smiled, a cold, unsettling expression. "I believe Artemas's work is crucial for the future of America today, especially his device, the Mason Codex. It is the symbol of our lost cause, Dr. Phoenix. Should you find it, please do not turn it over to those who do not understand the true glory of our nation." Ella understood immediately that Hayden was no mere researcher. He and his group, the Silent Ring, were an extremist white nationalist group, adherents to Confederate ideology, who wanted to acquire the Codex to use its symbolic and potentially practical value to further their political agenda and sow discord. Knowing she couldn't simply dismiss Hayden, Ella quickly called her most trusted contact, Special Agent Mark Kohler of the FBI's National Art Crime Team. Sandridge Manor in Virginia was a vast, dilapidated Georgian-style house that had stood abandoned for over a century and a half. It had once been the strategic headquarters for a key Confederate general, Johnson. When Ella arrived, Mark Kohler and his discreet team were already setting up surveillance outside the manor. Mark, a cool-headed operative with a keen interest in history, gave Ella a brief historical overview, information of the manor. This place was General Johnson's HQ. Artemas Phoenix worked right here, setting up his espionage strategies for Johnson. But before Artemas was caught, he was here one last time. Local lore says that the night he left, the sky was filled not with stars, but with black shadows.
Ella realized those black shadows were the same curse that had plagued her family. It was Artemas's fear and the silence he enforced. Mark warned her, "Phoenix, Hayden Cross and his group, the Silent Ring, are here. They followed you. They want to use the Codex to generate chaos and fuel conspiracy theories within the American political system. We need to find it fast." The first puzzle, the clock and the sun, mystery. Ella entered the manor guided by the ciphered message. The Phoenixes see the shadow where the sun's light never touches the day. On the first floor was Artemas's old study. Everything was covered in dust, but a massive wrought iron safe stood prominently in one corner. Next to the safe stood a colossal grandfather clock, its hands frozen at 3:41 p.m. Ella intuitively felt this was a code. She consulted the diary, where Artemas often incorporated astronomical data into his calculations. Using her phone's astronomy app, Ella checked the position of the sun on that specific May day in 1863. She found that at precisely 3:41 p.m., with the sun at the precise angle in the southwest, the shadow of the Sandridge Manor's peak would have fallen exactly upon a specific spot on the safe.
Ella placed her hand on that spot on the safe. It was a small button-like protrusion. When she pressed it, the back wall of the safe recessed, revealing a small cavity. The uniquely designed key from Elizabeth's trunk fit perfectly into the hole. As the key turned, the entire room trembled, and a concealed staircase emerged from the floor, leading deep down into the manor's foundation. The underground labyrinth, the skeleton key, folklore and information. According to Artemas's diary, this underground area was a secret tunnel system once used by slaves, which Artemas later converted into his personal laboratory and sanctuary. Ella and Mark descended, cautiously navigating the damp, torch-lit passage. They soon reached a dead end, a narrow passage blocked by a door. Carved onto the door was a symbol, a winged owl with 2 gemstones set into its eyes. Mark commented, The owl is a symbol in the local Native American folklore of this region. They believe the owl was the messenger of death, a lock that opens only by the key of the sleepless. Ella pulled out the diary. Artemas knew this local folklore and incorporated it for security. He had written, "Not the sleepless key, but my skeleton key." I encoded both life and death into every part of the device.
Ella realized Artemas had created a mechanical skeleton key that served both to unlock the door and to keep the codex safe. The information was subtle. Artemas had created the key's intricate mechanical sequence using the keys of his own typewriter. Ella quickly located the last page of Artemas's diary, which contained a long string of characters seemingly typed with unusual spacing. This was the sequence. She began to input the characters into the owl's carved eyes, which functioned as a complex numerical pad. With a grinding sound, the door opened, and they stepped into a vast underground chamber. The underground chamber was Artemas's private laboratory. In the center, within a glass display case, stood the Mason Codex, a small, incredibly complex, and beautiful mechanical box made of brass and dark wood. Around it, various instruments and glass jars of chemicals lay scattered. Ella approached the device. She noted a small bronze plaque next to the codex, engraved with Artemas's own handwriting. "Knowledge is power, and that power is a curse. Silence it." Ella spoke to Mark, her voice hushed. "My grandmother used to say that every major aspiration in our family was claimed by this curse. My father's research, my uncle's business, everything failed for some unknown reason. Artemas must have committed a mistake with this device that has haunted us for generations." Just then, the sound of an explosion echoed from the chamber entrance. The silent ring had followed them down. Hayden Cross and his team, armed with automatic weapons, flooded the chamber. Hayden commanded with a chilling intensity, "Get the codex. Phoenix, you are now useful to us." Mark Kohler immediately engaged in a rapid exchange of gunfire to cover Ella. On the other side of the room, Ella knew their time was up. If the device fell into Hayden's hands, he would undoubtedly use it to create political turmoil. Ella quickly retrieved the codex from its glass case. It was cold and heavy. Mark Kohler unfortunately took a bullet and collapsed injured. "Go, Ella. Take it. It's their primary target." Ella, clutching the device, scrambled into a tiny, almost invisible fissure in the wall leading to another tunnel. Hayden pursued her relentlessly. Ella squeezed into a small, secluded room. It was Artemas's sleeping quarters. She placed the Mason Codex on her lap. She realized the device was designed to accept input only once more. Ella quickly opened the part of Artemas's diary that she had previously dismissed, the master key to the flaw. The diary revealed Artemas's final thoughts. He realized the terrible power of the machine he had built. He could have swayed the war, but his conscience was shattered when a young boy from a poor family in North Virginia, suspected of being a spy, was shot before his eyes. He realized the machine would only escalate the bloodshed.
Artemas's final confession in the diary read, "I decided to defeat both sides. I left a mechanical flaw in the construction of the codex, a hidden vulnerability. The signals it generates are actually a mirror image cipher. Spies on both sides believed they successfully broke the enemy's code, but they were only confusing themselves. They exchanged only false information, strategically weakening both northern and southern decisions. I couldn't stop the war, but I wanted to make it meaningless. My death was the punishment for that mistake, but the curse that fell upon my family is the agony of not being able to reveal the truth. Conclusion. Information. The Phoenix family's generational failures were a result of this secret. If Artemas had revealed the truth, he would not have been seen as a heroic martyr, but as a failed saboteur, bringing an even greater dishonor upon his family. Therefore, his descendants silently carried the weight of the secret.
Hayden burst into the room, rage etched on his face. "Give it to me, Phoenix! This machine will change the course of our history!" Ella held the codex firmly. "History won't change, Hayden. It only creates misinformation. Artemas proved that himself." Hayden refused to listen. As he lunged towards her, Ella utilized the master key to the flaw input she had discovered in the diary. Ella rapidly began inputting the mathematical sequence from the last page of the diary onto the metallic plates of the device. As the final command was keyed in, the Mason Codex let out a soft click and fell silent forever. Its internal mechanical gears locked up, making it permanently inert. It was now just a silent, historical brass object. Hayden, enraged, snatched the now useless device and tried to smash it, but it was too robust. At that moment, the FBI agents, led by the recovering Mark Kohler, stormed the room. The members of the Silent Ring were apprehended, and Hayden was arrested while trying to destroy the now silent codex. The following morning, Ella stood on the balcony of Sandridge Manor. The FBI had recovered the Mason Codex, and it would be securely preserved in the National Museum in Washington. Silent, but a crucial symbol of a complicated period in history. Mark Kohler, treated for his injury and standing beside her, said, "You didn't just save a historical artifact, Phoenix. You've added a new chapter to the country's history. Artemas Phoenix is no longer just a traitor, but a moral hero." Ella smiled gently. "My family is finally free from the curse. The curse wasn't the device, it was the necessity of keeping the truth hidden." She decided to publish Artemas's full story. This truth would highlight the complexity of American history, where the line between good and evil was often blurred. Ella Phoenix returned to Boston, no longer carrying the burden of the curse. She was a new, liberated Phoenix, one who had solved the most complex mystery of the past using modern knowledge and ancestral courage. Her story will now serve as vital information for the American public and historians, proving that the greatest truth is often hidden behind the most compelling folklore.